Hello everybody, it's Tim here again, here another movie review. This time I finally got to watch the movie Megan. And I'll just go ahead and say this film apparently did well in theaters. And yes, before anyone says anything in the comments, assuming who watches this video, I am outside doing this because I figured what the hey, you know. But yeah, I just watched this movie finally getting to see it, and yeah, it did pretty well in theaters. So apparently it's getting a sequel, and I'm sure it was made on a modest budget. For the most part, this plays like a B movie. I'll just go ahead and say it, from 1 to 4 stars, I'd give this a 2. It's an okay one-off watch. This is not a good movie. It has some good moments. Overall, the biggest problem with this, there's multiple problems with the film. I'll just go ahead and say that. This film feels extremely rushed. You got this whole parental like plot device at the beginning with these two parents that get killed. And I'm actually the little girl is like being watched over by her aunt, who is, at first you're like, well, the aunt, we kind of get where she's coming from. She's thrust in this situation, and the psychiatrist shows up there to like watch them and everything. She's like, oh, we need to let the child do that and everything and all that. Talking about wanting to play with toys and all that kind of shit, where the woman is like, or the chick who plays the aunt is like, well, the figure can also do this because she's got like these collectible figures, and it's like, well, the psychiatrist is being like awful pushy. Like, you kind of get where the aunt's coming from, how she's thrust into this situation at the beginning of the movie, so you kind of feel sorry for the aunt. But throughout the movie, they make the aunt like stupider and stupider. Like, you get the idea that she's really absorbed into technology and her work and everything, so she's not really like parental material. You get that, and that's obviously going to be her character arc for her to become closer to the kid. And her acting in the movie is good, the best performance in the film, acting wise. The chick who plays or the girl or whatever who plays the little girl, she's also good. She's fine here in terms of acting, even though she has some stupid moments where her character doesn't really make sense, or it's just rushed character development to get to the end because they got to keep this movie under a certain length. Um, but but yeah, the psychiatrist at first, for the beginning of the movie, comes off really pushy and just kind of asshole-ish. Throughout the rest of the movie, they got obvious characters here who are set up just to be like cannon fodder for the slasher movie of it, and that's what this pretty much is, a kill-it-all camp slasher movie, which this movie has some tonal problems. Like, throughout the movie, in some parts, they're trying to play it serious and all that, or more grounded, where the doll is like bonding with the child and everything, where you got like these emotional moments, and some of them are a little sweet. They do kind of work, where she like records things or whatever, where the little girl's talking about memories of her parents and everything. She's like, I can play this back to you anytime, so you'll never forget it. It's like, okay, we get that. And of course, the whole idea is that the little girl is going to bond with the doll, and she's going to see the doll as like a parental figure because it's so like humanoid and all that shit. Um, but just to point out like how stupid the woman here is, the aunt, like how they write her to be retarded in certain scenes. It's like, well, I didn't even bother to install parental locks on this doll, and I just automatically give it to this little girl. And yeah, you're supposed to get the idea that she's like, not very motherly and all that, but at the same time, is she retarded because she's making this toy and all that shit to be like super advanced into obviously she has to worry about putting these things on the market and everything and all that, because that's what she's trying to do. And obviously, if the creature or doll goes out and does something, the figure or whatever, it's going to cause a lawsuit towards her. So the fact that she didn't put parental locks on it and all that kind of shit and examine it more first before she just rushed it out to give it to the little girl makes her seem, well, retarded, because she could end up in a lawsuit if it goes out and does something crazy, which of course it does, so it makes her look stupid. And you got other moments where it's like her neighbor's dog or whatever attacks them, and of course the dog's going to kill the dog eventually, and the dog is like overly vicious, of course, which is fine. It makes sense for this type of movie. They're adding up characters for the hit list, for the doll to take out. But at the same time, the woman, the next door neighbor's like, well, it only attacked him because you didn't fix that hole in your fence. And it's like, well, yeah, that is true. Your dog should be chained up if it's that vicious. But at the same time, it's like, well, you're also in the fault too, aunt, because you were so stupid you never fixed the friggin' hole in your fence. So it's like, yeah, they're both at fault here. She isn't wrong. But yeah. And of course, you get to the part where the doll like kills the old lady or whatever who also has the dog, and the death is like mostly off screen. You get a little bit of blood. The best death scene in the movie is when she kills like this psychotic little kid, like the daughter or whatever, goes to school, this school or whatever, where she's like outside, and they got this random boy there who's like psychotic, like out of the blue, just specifically to create a character to hate, so you don't care that he dies, and also because he's a little kid, so they got to make him an asshole little kid. So you're like, yeah, you kind of deserve that. So he's like a psychotic little kid who's like yells "fuck you" to his mom and everything, and he like deliberately like runs up to the doll and starts like beating the shit out of it. Like, this kid would have been a serial killer when he got older. He's like way over the top psychotic acting, and then he gets hit by a vehicle or whatever, because you see it in the trailer where the doll like pulls his ear, which kind of a neat effect. It does look like Play-Doh though when he's like pulling on it, but then the kid gets wiped out by a vehicle when he's running away. That's one thing about this movie, is it tries to play it like as like a killer doll movie at some point. It's just like a basic creepy killer doll movie, more similar to like Child's Play 1. And then in other moments it like tries to play up like extreme silly camp, and it's like there's some tonal problems here, and it was much better at the camp. Like, this film got extremely goofy and over the top silly at certain points, where it would have been much better just playing into the camp factor. And what would have helped this movie is if it would have been more of a over-the-top rated R, to when the doll like kills people who's like extremely bloody and ridiculous, where they just played it up. And it lets you know in certain points with the camp that they know that this movie is ridiculous, but they don't embrace it enough. If they would have fully embraced it, this movie would have been more fun. But they don't really go full force with it until the climax, and that's when the movie picks up. You get like this dumb part though in the climax though, where like the doll like kills the boss who runs the company, and it like goes to this other guy, and it's like, your boss always treated you like shit, and then you committed suicide, like gonna blame him for the murders. But there's also these two technician people who had tried to get away from it at the end of the movie, who are like working with the aunt or whatever, and it like sets off this explosion. It doesn't kill him, it just kind of knocks him down, and it's kind of a puny explosion. It's like, well, if you're trying to frame this other dude for the murders, obviously they're gonna know it wasn't really him, because the other two technicians are gonna tell people that it was you. So Megan, your plan is bullshit. So it's like, well, that didn't really make sense. The Megan character or whatever, like I said, a lot of this movie feels really rushed in terms of development. It really feels like it's trying to do the Child's Play remake thing, like with the whole artificial intelligence gone bad, but it rushes it way more. Like, it was much more believable in the remake of Child's Play than it is here. Another thing, Megan doesn't have much personality because it is an artificial intelligence thing. And that was maybe a little bit of a problem with the Child's Play remake as well, but that character was more interesting in this and slightly more cuter or whatever because of Mark Hamill's voice acting in that, and also he did a good job at just playing it psychotic as well. So the Child's Play remake, I'll go ahead and say, is better than this movie. But when it gets to the end though, and it goes like all that camp and Megan is like dancing around, all that shit like you see in the trailer, it just becomes like a farce when you're like laughing at it and with it. It is more fun. That's when the movie fully embraces pretty much what it is, a silly over-the-top dumb doll movie. But that's the thing, like this company is like trying to make like artificial AI Terminator dolls or whatever that are completely like sentient. It's like, why is this going into a doll, and who do they think they're going to sell these to? Like, what average parent has like $50,000 to pay for a fucking doll that's this intelligent? Nobody. This would never work. Nobody would buy this shit, and it's overly creepy. These would never sell. And also the thing about where the dolls like tells people to brush their teeth and all that kind of stuff, like the majority of kids would be like, fuck you, I ain't doing that. They're not going to listen to this shit. Yeah. And that's the other thing, of course, is like the little girl, she goes from like 0 to 60. Like, she has Megan for like 2 days, it feels like it. And then she just automatically like psychotic dependent on the doll, to where she's not just like super dependent on the doll, to where she's more like she's acting psychotic, where she like starts punching her aunt in the face like, give me back Megan, fuck you. And it's like really over the top, and it's not believable. And it's not the little girl's fault, not the actress's fault. It's just the way the writing is. They're trying to hurry up and rush through these character arcs to get the movie under a certain length, and it feels forced. Is the problem. You get to the end, of course, and the little girl realizes the doll is psychotic, and she uses like this Ed 209 type robot named Bruce or whatever, like beat the shit out of it. And towards like the climax of the movie, the doll doesn't even act like an artificial intelligence anymore. The filmmakers decide to give it like just like make it like nearly completely human, to where it just acts like a human serial killer. It doesn't even act like a artificial intelligence thing anymore. Like the Chucky doll in the Chucky remake, it was artificial intelligence pretty much the whole movie. Like, you could tell that he was just mixed up in the head and didn't know what he was doing. Here, this doll is like, it's completely sentient to the point to where it's like completely human. It's just, it acts like just like any other human serial killer by the end of the movie when it's like trying to take him out. It doesn't even act like an artificial intelligent doll anymore. So it just goes completely into camp territory by the end, and that's when this movie becomes the most fun. When we get to the end, they like rip the doll in half, and it's like still crawling around, and the aunt like rips the face off of it and pulls the battery out and all that shit, and they're like walking up to the police. And it's like a generic type ending where it's like, oh, Megan uploaded her memory files possibly into the house or whatever. It's like, oh, because one of the lights come on in the background or whatever. So it's like, oh, we could get a sequel. So it's like a generic type ending. And the good thing though about this is that if they do a sequel, Megan, they won't have to do like this origin plot shit type anymore, or that where she's bonding with the kid. They can just make the character just like a full-fledged serial killer, like it's pretty much what it became by the end. It won't have to be like an origin thing anymore, and they could just have it like going around taking people out for whatever reason, left and right. But yeah, overall, 2 out of 4. This was an okay movie that was increasingly helped by the marketing. Most Blumhouse movies are pretty shitty, to be honest. The only ones I've really enjoyed is maybe like, for the most part, I like the David Gordon Green Halloween trilogy, but that's more for him than anything Blumhouse-wise or whatever. But yeah, for the most part, I haven't really enjoyed much of the Blumhouse movies. Maybe like The Purge 2, that one was good. I think that was Blumhouse, the Purge movies. But yeah, the second one, I hated the first one. The third one was just alright, and the other ones just pretty much sucked. But yeah, overall, okay one-off watch. I would never watch this again. And that's pretty much it. 2 out of 4. It's there. It's harmless. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you again.